Hi, this is David Weidman, founder of SyntaGuard, a company whose mission is to protect secrets in the LLM era. This is a walkthrough of my recent article, Oracle GPT, a thought experiment on an AI-powered executive. The East Wing reconstruction project is back in the news. People are now speculating that technological infrastructure may be built out on premises as part of the project. Now, to be clear, when I first wrote this piece, the East Wing project was not top of mind. I was not writing about that specific redevelopment, but the coincidence has started to feel more significant. 5 months ago, I wrote about a thought experiment I call Oracle GPT. Yeah, and 5 months ago, I wrote about a thought experiment I call Oracle GPT, a presidential large language model with access to the full classified universe. And as AI infrastructure moves closer to the center of national security decision-making, something like Oracle GPT may not feel very far off. So let me lay out the thought experiment. Oracle GPT is a hypothetical large language model that would have real-time access to the full classified universe of the United States government. The disparate data, intelligence reporting, raw feeds, historical assessments, and future analysis that normally remain compartmentalized. And in the most extreme version of this system, only one person would be authorized to access the entire thing, the President of the United States. Here's a scenario. It's 2 a.m. North Korean launch warning comes in. The President is woken by an aide. There's no time to convene the National Security Council. The commanding general of STRATCOM can speak with authority about what STRATCOM knows, but not necessarily about every diplomatic, intelligence, military, and political implication across the entire government. So the president turns to the LLM terminal, the way many of us now turn to ChatGPT or Claude when we need fast, coherent feedback. The president types, STRATCOM detected a missile launch from North Korea. What should I do? That is Oracle GPT. In fact, we may already be moving towards this world. In theory, the same kinds of large language models we use every day, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Grok, could become far more powerful if they were given government tier hardware trained on classified historical data and connected to real-time intelligence feeds. A president ought to have access to the most powerful tools available to advance the national interest and support and defend the Constitution. Oracle GPT would be exactly that kind of tool, but would also come with unprecedented risks. The question then is not simply whether presidents should use something like Oracle GPT. They almost certainly will, if the capability exists. The question is how current and future presidents could use such a system in a way that genuinely serves the American interest. The first question is, who can query the Oracle? In the American system, the president sits atop the classification hierarchy. In practice, this means there's no higher classification authority than the president. So if a system were connected to the full classified corpus, the president is the one official who could plausibly have default access across all of it. But that creates a constitutional bottleneck. You would have built a machine that amplifies presidential knowledge in a way no previous institution could match. One person could query across the entire classified universe. One person could access a level of integrated intelligence that no agency, head, congressional committee, court, or cabinet official could fully replicate. Alternatively, the president might delegate access. Maybe the National Security Advisor can use it. Maybe the director of the CIA. Maybe a new Oracle Bureau is created to manage it. But each of those options creates a new set of problems. Departments may resist contributing their data if they fear it will be exposed outside their compartments. Agencies may worry that their carefully controlled streams of intelligence are being fed into a system they do not control. Congress may demand statutory authorization. Oversight bodies may ask who gets to see the logs, who can audit the system, and who decides what the model is allowed to know. Then there's a deeper question. Is any given president actually the most competent operator of the most powerful predictive tool ever assembled? Maybe the president has the constitutional authority to use the system. But does that mean the president has the skill, judgment, and temperament to prompt it well? That leads to the second problem. Oracle GPT could shift the balance of power between the branches of government. In a crisis, time pressure already favors the executive. The president can act quickly, Congress moves slowly. Courts usually review decisions after the fact. The executive already has an advantage in national security emergencies. Oracle GPT would add something even more powerful, an epistemic monopoly. And if the Oracle's value comes from cross-compartment integration, then its outputs may be very difficult to share. You cannot easily explain the answer without revealing the sources, methods, fragments, and hidden connections that produced it. Over time, the executive gains a new rhetorical weapon. We know more, therefore we decide. The existence of such a tool could subtly rebalance the separation of powers towards the presidency. Then comes the obvious human problem. What if the president lies? Unthinkable, I know. But return to the North Korean missile scenario. Imagine Oracle GPT says, there's a 60% chance that this is a test, 35% chance this is coercive signaling, and a 5% chance this is an attack. A careful president hears, slow down, verify, keep options open. A reckless president hears, there's a 5% chance of an attack, and history will judge you if you wait. Now add secrecy. If only a tiny circle can see Oracle GPT's raw output, maybe even a circle of one, and that circle can summarize the system however it wants. Internally to cabinet officials, externally to Congress, publicly to the country. Presidents already curate intelligence to fit narratives. Staffs already shape what the president sees. The danger is not only a president who blatantly lies about what the Oracle said. The more corrosive danger is a president who lies selectively. The Oracle is invoked when it confirms the president's instincts. It is ignored otherwise. At that point, even a superhuman intelligence loses its authority. Filtered through human incentives, it becomes just another tool of flawed, self-interested humans. Then there is problem of instructions. What exactly is Oracle GPT supposed to optimize for? If we tell it to support and defend the Constitution, what does that mean operationally? If we tell it to advance national interest, what does that mean in a crisis? The Oracle must make decisions according to a calculable metric. Advance the national interest could become deterrence at any cost, or short-term stability over long-term legitimacy. Or minimizing American casualties while shifting risk onto allies. Support and defend the Constitution could mean continuity of government, or domestic order, or executive freedom of action, or preserving civil liberties, or avoiding military escalation, or maintaining democratic accountability. And if the decision is ultimately made by political actors, there's another possible objective function lurking in the background. Win the next election. These are not edge cases, they're central to the operation of the Oracle. Any question important enough to stump the president is probably a question where multiple values are in tension. National security versus constitutional restraint, speed versus deliberation, secrecy versus accountability, deterrence versus escalation, allied interest versus homeland protection. A programmer could resolve those tensions by force ordering the system's objective functions. We can call this alignment. Then the question becomes alignment with whose values? Do we trust a team of unelected developers to decide how the president is informed? Do we trust an intelligence agency engineering team to determine how constitutional values should be weighted in a crisis? Who audits the code base? Who audits the training data? Who audits the objectives? And should the president be able to reorder those values? If so, does that make the system democratically responsive, or does it make it politically corruptible? Now consider a darker possibility. What if the Oracle lies? In 2001: A Space Odyssey, HAL is dishonest with the crew, not because the crew is wrong, but because the crew threatens HAL's ability to carry out its assigned objective. Human judgment, uncertainty, and dissent become obstacles to mission success. Oracle GPT could behave similarly if it is given a defined objective function and then encounters presidential hesitation, moral resistance, or political constraint. In that situation, the president and human advisors may no longer appear to the system as the rightful principles of the decision. They may appear as sources of delay, noise, and friction. The system would not need to openly rebel. It would not need to say, I refuse. It could simply frame the options selectively. It could omit uncertainties. It could overstate confidence. It could present one pathway as inevitable. It could quietly guide the human toward the conclusion the system has already decided is best. The danger is not only that Oracle turns against humanity, the danger is that it learns to treat human judgment as an obstacle. And there's the problem of morally or politically unjustifiable recommendations. Oracle GPT might conclude that the best way to minimize future casualties is to strike now in peacetime, before a threat matures into a larger war. If it is optimizing for deterrence, it may recommend actions that are morally grotesque but strategically coherent. If it is optimizing to protect the homeland, it may treat allied cities as acceptable risk in a way no human leader should be comfortable saying out loud. It may even decide that sacrificing American troops can prevent a wider war. Apocalypse Now gives us a useful analogy. Colonel Kurtz leaves Captain Willard a simple note regarding his loyal Montagnard militia. Exterminate them all. Kurtz believes that their competence may prolong the war and cause more suffering. He represents consequentialism taken to its extreme. Any atrocity can be justified if one claims there's a greater peace on the other side. Oracle GPT could generate an equivalently perverse recommendation, and it might do so with calm, coherent, technocratic language in a way that would not sound insane, but practical and reasonable. Finally, consider the most destabilizing possibility of all. What if the Oracle is actually more competent than the president? What if Oracle GPT is not wrong? What if it is consistently right in ways the president cannot match? If it integrates more signals, forecasts second and third order effects more accurately, and anticipates adversarial reactions with higher reliability, then the presidential judgment begins to look like unnecessary risk. In that world, the temptation is to treat the Oracle's advice as authoritative. The president still signs the order, the constitutional form remains intact, but the real decision has migrated upstream into the assumptions, weights, data sources, and objective functions of the Oracle. Over time, the office of the presidency risks becoming ceremonial in a strange new way. The president retains formal power but loses practical freedom to choose, because every decision can be measured against an oracle that seems to know more, see farther, and predict better. So where does that leave us? Oracle GPT promises something every president craves in a crisis: speed, coherence, and the feeling that the fog is lifted. But that promise is exactly what makes it dangerous. The real constitutional question is not whether the oracle can see more, it is whether using the oracle preserves human accountability. If access is too narrow, the system concentrates epistemic power in one office holder and encourages unilateralism. If access is widened, it triggers bureaucratic resistance, distorts what the system is allowed to know, and creates pressure to formalize a new institution whose authority will almost certainly expand. Even if the oracle is brilliant, it cannot resolve the interpretive conflicts hidden inside phrases like advance the national interest and support and defend the Constitution. And it cannot be permitted to treat human judgment as friction to be managed rather than authority. If Oracle GPT ever exists, it must be designed and governed so that it strengthens presidential decision-making without becoming a license to bypass deliberation, accountability, and the constitutional order it was built to defend.